Hello, everybody. I'm joined today by Wipavee Watcharakorn from Thai importer Vachamon Food and Rachael McClintock from table grape breeder SNFL, who's based in Australia. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Hi,
It's great to have you here.
thank you.
Um, so today, and in this session, we're going to turn our focus to Southeast Asia, a really exciting region when it comes to table grapes and full of lots of opportunities for the world's table grape supplies. There's an interesting mix of emerging and developed table grape markets and plenty of economies that are set to grow in the coming years. That's going to really expand some of the consumer demographics that are going to be looking to buy imported table grapes. We might start with a bit of an overview of the region. Rachael, how have you seen the Southeast Asian region sort of develop for table grapes in recent times?
Look, here in Australia, the table grape industry, we've been expanding plantings immensely over the past 5 to 10 years. The Southeast Asian markets play a very incredibly important role to us. There's been significant change for demand for Australian table grapes in the past 5 to 7 years. Based on Australia can deliver some excellent quality at good price points. There's a lot of consumer and buyer demand for our fruit coming out of regions such as Western Australia and Sunraysia, based on flavour, crunch, and appearance. The Sheehan program, which is run and owned by SNFL, we're seeing a lot of Ivory, Melody, Great Green, and Allison gaining very good traction in these markets. And I think with South Asian culture, the food is really based around fruit for snacking, for desserts, and we're seeing some very, very high demand in exports and also sort of volume out of Australia.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, for Wipavee, for you in Thailand, how has the table grape market sort of developed in recent times for the Thai market?
Right now, there's heaps of new varieties emerging, not only from like the Western countries, but also like in China itself also. So at the moment, consumers are more open to try like new varieties, and they are pretty much bored or do not want to continue so much on the red gold varieties.
That's great. And I guess sort of if we zoom in a bit there specifically, what kind of preferences are we seeing Thai consumers really take a liking to? Is there specific varieties, seedless?
All right. Okay. Because there's a huge positive feedback on Chai muscat from China. So right now, people in Thailand, they are open for the green seedless variety at the moment.
Mm.
And like before, a long time ago, they are only well accepted for the red seedless variety. But at the moment, the green seed has become much more popular than before.
That's really interesting. I guess, Rachael, from your perspective, I know you did mention a few of those varieties there, but what are some of the trends we're seeing when it comes to preferences in table grapes coming out of Southeast Asia?
Look, I think seedless varieties are the key. There's a huge demand there. We're seeing countries like Malaysia and Singapore are preferring sweet fruit with low acidity. Indonesia, we definitely still see a high preference for Red Globe, which is one of the older seeded varieties on the market. However, black varieties are getting traction, such as Melody in our program. Vietnam and Thailand are playing big roles for export here in Australia. The Vietnamese are looking for a good balanced variety, good sugar, good acidity, and yeah, varieties like in our program, Allison and Ivory, they're knowing the name, they're seeing the fruit, and wholesale markets are also looking for bigger size, but they're looking for that high sugar, that real crunchy, crisp flavour varieties.
Yeah. Some really interesting trends there, and I guess good from your perspective to sort of see some of that name recognition coming through, which is obviously an important sort of trend for the table grape industry with all these new varieties coming through. Obviously, you're in Australia, and as you mentioned, Southeast Asia is an important market for Australia. What other sort of suppliers are you sort of compete, or are you seeing that Australia compete against and really sort of target this market at the moment?
I think globally, the biggest change and the most growth that we're seeing at the moment is Peru. Look, Peru's a country that's really come on board. Looking back 10 years ago, they were a country that produced around 10 million cartons. Today, we're up to 75, 80 million cartons out of Peru. So they are one of our bigger competitors. But however, here in Australia, our growth has certainly doubled over the last 10 years. The older varieties, your Crimson, your Thompson, your Menindee, we're starting to see a change in grower preference of planting. The growers are now moving into more of the proprietary varieties out of Sunweld, IFG, and with Sheehan. And that's driven by the flavour intensity, a high yielding growers like variety that they can get good returns on. But there's certainly been some redevelopment over the last probably 3 to 5 years, and I think we'll see more development coming to supply those markets in Southeast Asia. Look here, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, they're playing a very key role in our export markets here out of Australia.
I guess for you, Wipavee, China's obviously such a big volume, puts such a big volume when it comes to a lot of Southeast Asia, including Thailand. But what other suppliers are you seeing vie for a market share in Thailand at the moment?
Just as Rachael mentioned that Peru is quite important as well, but Peru for Thai market is still a red globe market. Like for the seedless, like because the price is relatively very, very high and the quality for the seedless is still not that there yet. For us, when we perceive the quality, there's still like, a lot of shatter issue and the price for some special varieties are pretty high at the moment. So for us, like for the Thai consumers or for the Thai importer, we barely import like 95% of the like Peru red globe. Like maybe 5% for trial, just to see like whether that is going well in the market, how's the market response to that like specific varieties, but not until now. Like there's no like positive feedback yet for the seedless variety from Peru. But on the other hand, like for Australia, because the shorter transit time and the growers and exporters that are like much more in terms of like numbers, and then there's like differences in prices for the premium variety to like premium growers to the normal growers. So there's like like big opportunity for someone like importers to try like for small volume, for example, like buy air, like for a pallet or something. And if things go well, they can order just by sea. So for Thai importers, Australian is the origin that we keen to explore in terms of like new varieties, in terms of better like conditions for the purchase for us.
That's great. And obviously with China being the largest supplier coming into Thailand, what kind of sort of improvements have you seen over recent years? Is quality starting to, and you've mentioned sort of some of that shine musket coming in, and is the quality, are you starting to see better quality from China in recent?
They are very good. Yeah, they are very good. They're terrific. Like I just can't believe that over the past like 2-3 years, they have been like a huge development in terms of like packaging, quality, taste, everything. Also pricing as well. Pricing is not that cheap. Like surprisingly, like it's not like a cheap place for import that much anymore. Like for example, especially if you are talking about like this like Chai muscat varieties, they're not that cheap. But also that because there's so many like exporters people, so they can do like a few different like gradings and different packaging, so they can be like a cheaper versions of the Chai muscat and until the very expensive version of the Chai muscat. You can see that there's like a gift box, like a Japan, like exactly like a Japan box. That's like relatively still very expensive. But then there's like the punnets, like 500 grams, something like that. That's a bit like cheaper version of smaller bunch and smaller size berries. So they are more competitive. But talking about the competitiveness of that like particular SKU, is not that cheap. Like you can't compare like the Chai muscat to like normal Crimson or normal like Thompson. It's never be that range for them anyway at the moment. So when we're talking about like retail pricing, just to give you the idea, for like Thai market, they buy that 500 grams of the Chai muscat, right? they are selling between like 100 like 39 to 199. It depends on like beginning of the season to the end of the season. In the peak season, they can probably do the price around like 139 per pack. But in the beginning of the season and late season, they have to do like a bit higher, like 199, 179, whatsoever, for example. And that's like we call like the cheapest version of Chai Muscat already. For the expensive one, like we're talking about gift set, like the say 750 gram gift set, like with the inner box itself. That one, like in one box, it can be like close to like 1,000 baht. So it's an expensive variety. Like people buy it because like they experience like a huge difference in terms of like eating quality, sweetness, the jelly taste, and it looks really good. And it's very suitable for, like buying for yourself just for a snack type, or, buying as a gift for someone else that you want to give, as a present. So it's like the market is really growing for the Chai Muscat, and not just the green Chai Muscat. Like last year, we saw some of the like new development of the red Chai Muscat, which is even more expensive because the variety is still pretty new. And there's a name is Nina, and this is very still not so very familiar for all the like packers. Just a few exporters packer that they're doing it, but they put like maybe the price like 1.5 times X of the normal green Chai Muscat. But it's like the size is there that they're gonna have something like this, like a big berry, very healthy bunch, looks very nice. For 500 grams as a small cheapest range to the like very expensive range, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see how quickly and how complex that sort of product out of China is developing. So some great insight there, Wipavee. I guess, do you see that, I guess, that increase in the Chinese product and how that's sort of developing the market and for sort of that Northern Hemisphere supply period? Do you think that will help the Southern Hemisphere supply by getting getting consumers more used to buying grapes or spending more money on grapes? That makes it a more...
I think so. I think so. I think this Chai Muscat very premium quality and a bit higher price from China, sort of like set the new standard for the seedless varieties. Before, when we're talking about like Crimson, Thompson, right? Chinese one always like quite cheap. You can buy something like 10, 11 US dollars for like 7 kg, right? And that has been like a standard for so long. When you're talking about like how Australian or how like USA can compete with this kind of like price point, it's nearly impossible, right? But when right now we are talking about like the better quality that the customer can experience, and customers are used to paying like more higher price, then like it become like a new standard. So when I went to the trip to Australia just recently, like about like 3 weeks ago, then we talking about how do we want to develop all these new varieties in Australia, to import into Thai market. And we all talk about like exploring all these like like all these mentions like Allison's or like autumn crisp has been a variety for long. We have tried since like the US Sunworld one for like 8 years ago, like 7-8 years ago. But at that time, like I think autumn crisp was one of the difficult variety in terms of like consistency of quality, and we had like good good outcome, good feedback, and we also had like negative or quality problems feedback as well. So, and because of the like longer transit time from the US, and also with the higher price because of the tariff, so it's not that easy. It wasn't that easy with Australian. Like the quality that I seen, especially for this year, the quality was like superior, terrific, and with like with shorter transit time, and with like without import tariff that we have to pay. Like people are more like optimistic about how do we develop like this new variety, and particularly that we just been in the season that Chai Muscat has set the new standard in terms of like people can pay a little bit more if the quality is there. Last time, like 8 years ago, like there was cheap varieties available all right. Then when you have like this autumn crisp or whatever, like sweet globe or like moon drops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, then these are like expensive varieties, but you have like a lot of Thompson Crimson available, and they are eating that okay as well. So it's kind of like difficult to boost those like new variety in terms of like massive scales. But at the moment, things are a little bit like favorable in terms of like people are used to paying a little bit more higher price.
Yeah.
And especially, I think, like, let me add a little bit on, especially, like, I think, like, retailers are one of the key major drivers to grow the industry as well. Before, like, long times ago, like, when we talk about 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years ago, hypermarket people have the mindset, like, if there's, like, not this certain, like, price point, then, like, who's going to buy? They always have this mindset all the time, right? But with those, like, Shy Muscat into the season, last season, and they could sell, like very like considerable, like quite a large volume for them at this like price point, like 199, 179 per pack of 500 grams. So it means that 1 kg is nearly like like above 300 baht, right? So for them, they thought like it's a whole new world for them that this kind of price point can sell this much volume. So when we brought them together, with us to visit like the farms in Australia and talking about all this new variety with this like premium price point, they didn't have like reluctance to try. So that is like a very positive and favorable outlook for the industry, because you can't grow the industry without the retailers being in big part of it. That's so true.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess, Rachel, from your point of view, do you sort of see it as one of those rising tide lift all boats kind of situation, where if we can get the consumers in Asia sort of ready and willing to pay for that high quality product throughout the year, that's something that really becomes a regular in their basket when they go shopping?
I definitely think so. And look, referring to Shine Muscat, it's a variety. It's in a league of its own. Look, I've seen it, I've tasted it. It is it's a very different flavored variety. But look, I think from an impact point of view to mainstream varieties, I think it's a niche variety. It's in its own league and own category, and own price point. But I think the quality coming out of Australia has certainly improved. Growers and consumers are both are growing for quality. Consumers are looking for quality, looking for that flavour, for that crunch, the green stems. So I think overall, quality's certainly improving globally.
Yeah, that's definitely a direction I think everyone is agreed in heading in. I guess when it comes to some of these new varieties coming into Southeast Asia, what are sort of some of the ones that you're really seeing traction with for SNFL, Rachel? And I guess what is SNFL sort of doing to sort of help this along where it can?
Look, I think we have a very strong marketing team. We do a lot of interaction with both consumers and with buyers. We're very proactive in social media. But I think the rising varieties going into Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, your ivories, and your Great Green, your Timpson. Melodies had very good traction through Korea, through Taiwan, and through Thailand. And Allison, we're just starting to get volume of Allison come through out of Australia. And Allison, it travels well, it eats well. And then SNFL as a group, we've got new programs for the future, and we're starting to look at varieties with health benefits. We've got varieties that are black fleshed. So yeah, we've got some really exciting stuff or varieties in the pipeline with exotic flavors. We've got a mango grape. So yeah, so there's exciting times ahead.
Definitely sounds like it. I guess so. Maybe bringing things to a bit of a close here, Wipavee, what kind of other opportunities do you see for the table grape market in Thailand? What can we sort of expect over the coming years, and where do you think suppliers should be really looking when it comes to your country?
Right. Okay. So I was talking about just the green settlers right now, but I think there's some opportunities for the black settlers and also the red settlers. When I went to Australia, I saw like this pink diamond, which is like super big and tastes really good. And also with black seedless is like Melody, we actually have done like quite a good program for few years already, and this year we think is like not just the melody that we like to do, but also like sweet flavor and other things that we like to try also. So it's a year for the exploring the new opportunities. People feel that after the pandemic they want to try new things, especially with the retailers that I'm hand in hand with. Like they would like to try like at least like 9 varieties, and they want to see like like which one has like a positive feedback from the consumers, and then they can probably use that as the direction to grow for the volume and things like that for the next years to come. But so, for this year, it's all about like the new opportunities, the new try, and with the social media that we can talk about like how the difference of each varieties like come into play, and what can you expect, what are the story behind of each. So the things that kind of like much easier in terms of like communicating to the consumer before like when we want to communicate something like with the uniqueness and story, but we don't know how to communicate with them, because when we are the importer, we have to go through all these like like distributor channels, right? All of these are require like a lot of communication, and people are just do not talk for us, especially like for hypermarkets. Like they don't have like the staff or people at the operation level to do all these kind of things, right? Even like you have like all those like POSM, but people don't really like notice or read and get the kind of message, right? So with the social media come into play at the moment, like you have a better chance to communicate all this story behind the uniqueness, the expectation of the customer that they can get, and the price point that being like uplift a little bit, so it should make things a little bit easy. So for Vachamon and for our customers, we think like we like to try a lot, like at least like 9 varieties that we already placed on the orders, and we want to see like who's going to be the winners for for these varieties going forward for our like futures.
Yeah, definitely some exciting opportunities there, and it's great to hear that the market and the retailers are eager to try some of these new varieties and really sort of push the barriers a little bit. Rachel, from your perspective, what opportunities are you sort of seeing that are going to be really exciting in the region over the coming years?
I think from an SNFL point of view, we've got, as I said before, we've got some pretty different varieties coming through. We're focusing on exotic flavors. We're very conscious of quality, of crunch. Varieties now need to be grower friendly. Cost of labor and cost of production here in Australia is at a world highest, but we're seeing more and more new varieties be planted. That there is I think we are at a turn in our industry here, where we're seeing some of the older varieties come out and newer varieties come in. But I think this year what I am noticing is there's a lot more air freight going into Southeast Asia, that the prices are right, and the demand is there. Exporters are wanting a good mix of reds, blacks and greens. So I think the pinnacle point here is exploring new varieties, looking into new breeding programs, but the majority is planting seedless varieties, and that's just servicing the Southeast Asian demands. So the table grape industry, we're at a good place at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely great to hear some positive news coming out after the past few years that have been difficult to say the least. So thank you very much, Wipavee and Rachel, for joining us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks for everyone at home, and hopefully there's plenty to take away there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liam.